call the Honourable David Parker.
Firstly, Mr Chairman, may I just acknowledge the officials who have been here for a long time this week, and thank you for being here and for the help that you gave to the Select Committee and to this Parliament. Mr Chairman, I want to raise a couple of issues. Firstly, I want to point out the logical flaw in Paul Quinn's argument. Paul Quinn says that he says that codifying the relevant tests for establishment of customary interests settles the issue and will provide an enduring settlement. But how can that be when the Maori Party, the coalition party which the government relies upon to pass this, says that they disagree? That's the reason that the Labour Party withdrew from a consensus around this legislation, because it turned into a fiction. The Maori Party could not bring themselves to say they accepted this was an enduring deal. If they had done, maybe Parliament would have a different outcome now, and we would just about have unanimity on this thing. The Prime Minister didn't go to the Maori Party and say, we need you to acknowledge this as full and final settlement of the framework for settlement of customary interests in the foreshore and seabed. It's a failure of leadership in the view of the Labour Party on the part of both the National Party and the Maori Party to get to that point. That was the objective that you set for yourself, was that this was going to settle things. So there's a logical flaw there. And the other thing that I thought was interesting in Paul Quinn's contribution is he spent the first part of it saying how great it was that the Maori Party and the National Party were cooperating on this. And it's interesting about that, because a lot of people are effectively saying, and they're right, that a vote for the Maori Party is a vote for the National Party. And from the Maori Party supporters' point of view, they see that as a plague upon the Maori Party house. And a lot of other people are saying a vote for the National Party is a vote for the Maori Party. And that's been seen as a plague upon the National Party in the eyes of a lot of voters. So it's really a plague upon both their houses, and that's why in a process sense, because both the Maori Party and the National Party know that those lines are correct. A vote for the Maori Party is a vote for the National Party, a vote for the National Party is a vote for the Maori Party. That's why this legislation is being pushed through so quickly, even under the shadow of the Canterbury tragedy and the Christchurch earthquake. That's why the Select Committee process was so truncated, because both the Maori Party and the National Party want to get it off the agenda, because this legislation is a plague upon both their houses. I want to deal also with something that the Honourable Mita Ruranui said. I thought that his contribution in respect of the member for Te Tai Tonga was appropriate. He wasn't making a personal attack upon her. He was just saying, how can you stand there and pretend that this delivers what you say it delivers for Ngāi Tahu? It doesn't. Ngāi Tahu actually don't favour the bill. They say that the bill should go down. No, I agree she's not here, the representative of Ngāi Tahu. Her interests are broad in that, but she pretends in respect of Ngāi Tahu that this bill delivers them something that meets their aspiration, when it doesn't. It most plainly doesn't. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Ngāi Tahu as to their view as to what the common law test would be if it went to court. In fact, I don't. But I do believe that they should have the right to explore it, and I do believe with them when they say that their sense of injustice will last for generations and it's not going to go away through the passage of this legislation. So Mita Ruanui's criticisms of Rahui Katane were not personal attacks upon her. They're actually just showing that the position that she takes is wrong, and it is ignorant as to what this delivers for Ngāi Tahu, which is very little of anything. And in respect of that, I have to say that the Maori Party is hoisted by their own petard, because they created, through their, in my view at times, irresponsible rhetoric at one edge of the debate during the last version of this, they created an expectation amongst Māoridom that was never going to be delivered by the Ngāti Apa decision. So they're being hoisted by their own petard because they exaggerated to the people that they purport to represent an outcome that would never be achieved, because that's not what the law ever said. Mr Chairman, the other thing that Paul Quinn said is that this legislation makes the foreshore and seabed safe and everyone can have access. I thought that that was a return to some of the arguments of the past which I didn't like. And I would acknowledge that Tauhenare in his contribution actually made that point clear, that access to the beaches has never been an issue through the foreshore and seabed. That was a fiction that was put about by Don Brash, by other members of the National Party. I've actually read out their contributions in the committee stage, including Nick Smith. No, we actually said in this House that access to the beaches was not... Mr Chairman.
Honourable David Parker.
We made it absolutely explicit in our contributions that it was never at risk, and in fact we also legislated so that it wasn't at risk in the foreshore and seabed legislation. I agree with Tauhenare that the issue about access across people's land to the foreshore and seabed is a completely different issue. It's never been an issue concerning the Ngāti Apa decision in foreshore and seabed, and there are places in New Zealand where, as my colleague Parakura Horomia has said, access is increasingly difficult to get down to the beach, which is a different issue, I agree, but it is a practical issue in parts where some private owners are exercising their property right to exclude others, and they stop people getting across their land in a way that wasn't the case in prior years. But that's not a foreshore and seabed issue. As Parakura Horomia makes clear, it's another issue which is important. Mr Speaker, this legislation has got a new name. It's the Marine and Coastal Area Takutai Moana Bill. It could equally be called the Replacement Foreshore and Seabed Bill, because it's actually not that much different from the original Act. It's not that much different. The main difference is that rather than being able to go to the court to prove that you had a territorial customary right and then having to come to the Crown to negotiate to get your rights back, you can get a remedy from the court. And that is an important change that the Labour Party agrees with and indeed submitted to the review committee. But the threshold tests, yes, they're a bit different, but they're not that different. The creation of this new definition of public space, or this space that somehow no one owns, is a legal fiction. If it's held by the Crown or it's held in some other name, actually what matters is the different rights that people have in respect of it, and those bundles of rights are largely unchanged. So, Mr Chairman, I am saddened at the lack of leadership shown by both the Maori Party and the National Party in not getting us to a settlement here. That's the task that they set us, and because neither the National Party was willing to ask, really to call the bluff of the Maori Party and say, hey, take this or leave it, and because of the unwillingness of the Maori Party alternatively to offer up acceptance that this was a fair settlement, we've actually left New Zealand with uncertainty. No, we have not. No, Dr Mapp, that's not correct. Actually, Dr Mapp, actually, I might quote you again what you said in committee stage in the last bill, how large tracts of the foreshore and seabed were going to pass, were not going to be accessible to non-Maori. That's something that it should stand as a stain upon your record as a member in this House. The reality is that this does not settle the issue because the Maori Party and the National Party have not been able to reach an accommodation between themselves, acknowledging that this is full and final. The Prime Minister hasn't required of the Maori Party, and the Maori Party has not offered it. John Armstrong was right in that in the Herald when he made that analysis. The National Party moved a long way. We were willing to move a little way. We actually didn't have to move that far because we were a lot closer to the Maori Party than the National Party were, but we were willing even to move a bit further than that. The Maori Party just had to move a little way. They actually had to show a bit of leadership, because you don't just hear, as Tahenare says, you're not just here representing an iwi interest. We're here representing the interests of all. No, they've said at both leader, deputy and senior whip level that they do not accept this is a settlement, and it is but a first step, and that is a failure of political leadership which is bad for this country. The access issues, Mr Speaker, were never an issue, but sadly this should be called the failed attempt at settlement bill. And I think it's lamentable because we got so close. We had the opportunity. We could have had even one of the supplementary order papers that had been voted for to flick it all back to the courts had been voted for. That would have settled it too. There were a couple of ways that this could have resulted in settlement, but it did not occur.